We now go back to Durban as part of our special coverage on the rising construction mafia cases in the province. My colleague Xoli Mngambi is standing by with some of the political parties on their proposed solutions and claims on who might be involved. Now, Xoli, over the past couple of hours this evening, you've spoken to the police in the province. You've spoken to an analyst as well who described it as worryingly violent situation. You've also spoken to the Durban Chamber of Commerce, who painted quite a grim picture of what it's like for business to operate under these conditions as well. But for now, you've got the politicians there too to answer.
Indeed, Masa, and I'm not going to waste any more time. Quite an introduction that you have done, summing up what we have been throughout the night, the kind of parties we have been talking to. Well, let's welcome now to this conversation Bheki Mtolo. He is the secretary of the ANC in KwaZulu-Natal. Alongside him is the leader of ActionSA in KwaZulu-Natal, Mr. Zwakele Mncwango, who's also the caucus leader of the party in the legislature. But gentlemen, good evening to you and thank you very much for your time. Can I start with one uniform question to both of you? There are 5 individuals who are appearing in court suspected of being involved in the so-called construction mafia or the extortionist behavior that we have seen in this province. Mr. Mtolo, are any of those people in court linked in any way to your party?
No, not the one that I know that are linked to the African National Congress. But even if they were linked, what we should do is that we should deal with criminals as they are, regardless of where church they go to, which political party they associate with, which traditional leadership they associate with, which tax association they associate with. Once somebody commits a crime, he must be defined as a criminal and be treated as such. That's what we need to do. Because once we start to sugarcoat criminals and give them some cover-up, some shield, then we'll end up not doing what is best for us. Yeah. And then we should have to know that criminals are criminals, and then we also applaud the police, the way they are working on this matter, and it's starting to spread all over. It started in KZN, where we started to be very, very hard on these people that are stopping projects, public infrastructure, private projects, and all that. I'm seeing that the police are starting to be very hard in the Eastern Cape, in Gauteng, in Cape Town. I think within a short space of time, this thing will end.
Mr. Mncwango, similar question to you. If any of the people appearing in court on extortion charges were linked to your party, what would your action be right now?
I think it's important to treat criminals as criminals, regardless of their affiliation. If someone is a criminal, must be treated as a criminal. But what I must say, we are happy that finally police are acting. I think it's important to reflect back how this started. It was around 2015. I was serving on executive committee in eThekwini. The group started as Zwakele Mncwango, and at that time, unfortunately, maybe my colleague here will remember, there were a bit of factions within the ANC at that time. And what happened then is the genuine business community who wanted to enter a space of tenders were feeling neglected. They felt neglected. And they were raising issues with leadership. But leadership saw an opportunity to use that group of individuals to fight internal battles within the political party. That's how we started. Yeah. At that time, we also raised this issue, saying, look, these are criminals. At that time, they were violating, victimizing people on M4. They were beating people on construction. Poor workers were beaten by this group of individuals. And we kept saying, arrest criminals, and were protected by a faction within the political party at that time. But this thing have mushroomed all over the province and the country as well, but it started in eThekwini at that time.
Mr. Mtolo, I think Mr. Mncwango has done much of my work here in trying to locate the genesis, the beginning of these so-called construction mafia, because as he correctly points out, there was a grouping that we understand came from Mlazi, and they were the grouping calling themselves Amatela Ngobona Business Forum. And then there was another one from Kwamashu. That one was called Kwamashu Youth in Action Movement. Were these people ANC members? And is he correct when he says these were factions of the ANC that mushroomed into something bigger?
No, let me just, the challenge about, you know why South Africa can't solve problems? It's because we become naive and politicize issues that don't need to be politicized. Once you start to politicize crime, you are making a very dangerous phenomenon, because you want those whom you are choosing to defend themselves instead of dealing with crime. Let me tell you how this thing of people who come and demand some percentages in project, when it started. Malusi Gigaba, while he was the Minister of Finance, remember, he promulgated some what is called Preferential Policy Framework Regulations of 2017. Those regulations gave projects that are above 30 million plus, including VAT, that they should be sub-construction of about 30% of the value of the project. But then there was no clear how that should be done by contracting authorities, both provincial, national, and local government. Lucky I was still in local government then. Then that's where these people started. Then there was a genuine business people who will want, when the project is awarded, it's 45 million, they will want to come and say, well, here, I'm grade 7, I want some opportunities here because there's law that says I must get 30%. Then in the process, then there was a mushroom of criminals who will come with guns to the contractor and say, well, here, give us 30%, contractor will fight until the contractor agrees. But when the contractor agrees, they don't want to work. They just give him an account and say, please put the 30% here. And remember the 30% that they're talking about, because people don't even understand business. They don't understand that this 30% that it must be quantified, they must do work, and then they must get a payment, a completion certificate, they must be paid. Then they will say, if the project is 100 million, it means you must literally give them 30 million without doing anything. Then it started to be like that, and it started to spread. I can tell you, while I was, I think it was 2017, if I recall it very, towards...
Without going too much into history, Mr. Mtolo, because we're going to lose the viewers. I know there's quite a history that you may want to relate, but here's the point, and you make a very good one, that these are people who are not interested in working. It's exactly how the police minister, the current police minister, has termed them in Parliament, that these are parasites who are not interested in working a day in their lives except to parade themselves as criminals. So the research, though, talks about the clear link that exists between these groupings, these construction mafia, and certain political individuals. And that's why I'm asking you this question, stemming from what Mr. Mncwango has said, that if there are political links, it's important that the country is told, yes, these were politicians, but we've cut ties with those people because that is not what the ANC subscribes to. Is that a fact?
No, it's fine, but the problem is that when you say it's political link, like I heard, I think it was this week, if not the weekend, that says some person accused that there are certain politicians that instruct these people to go and stop projects because these politicians, in terms of his accusation, they also benefit. I'm a politician, Mncwango is a politician, Rogers is a politician, MEC for Finance. Then we are all politicians, but there must be a name of a politician. That Mr. Mtolo sent me to stop Konobia project. Once you say that, we narrow the issue. But if we say it's politicians, everyone who works here is a politician, even myself who's honest, I will be seen as if I've instructed someone to stop projects. Then if people are not fair, they must say, so-and-so, who's a politician from this party, has instructed me to stop the project and it demanded so much. Then you can, but beyond that, I think because there's somebody now whom is quoted on newspapers, I think the police must zoom in. They must take that person to say, tell us the name of the politician. In which project that he sent you, How much did he want? How did it happen? Because we must start to do that. Otherwise, we'll brush all politicians, even very, very good politicians.
Yeah.
Because politicians are so unlucky. Because some of the politicians are very honest. Some of them have got a track record in government. They've never done anything wrong. But when you say politicians, but what I can tell you is that, I can assure you, if we can discover that one member of the ANC is involved in any criminal activity, we will act. We have acted, in fact, in many of them. Not only on because we have not discovered someone who's on construction mafia, but we have acted on many ANC leaders and and members who have been found to be on the wrong side of the law, and some of them we have expelled them.
Let's give Mr. Mncwango a chance as well. So you've given us a brief history into this. Then there is the introduction of the taxi industry here, which is said to be part of this mix. Does that make it toxic in terms of the violence that accompanies the hijacking or the invasion of these contracts or these projects, Mr. Mncwango? And if so, how do you think police are dealing with it?
I think it would be incorrect to say maybe violence is now triggered because there's involvement of taxi industry. As I said earlier, when it started, it was already violence at that time. The way they were demanding work, they will really be violent in the way they were doing it. I remember, I hear what Mtolo is saying, but I was there on executive committee, Xoli. When I was there, in the meetings, there were times where we discussed these issues. We will be told by one faction of the ANC to say, no, hold on, let's negotiate, let's engage with them. Where we said, no, we can't engage with criminals. So at that time, there was no political will to deal with these criminals because people felt we must engage with them, let's meet with them. And I said, why must we meet criminals? But now what we must commend is that at least the minister and the police commissioner are now acting decisively against the criminals. But we mustn't lose the fact that there are genuine groupings of business people who want to enter the space, but they find it very difficult because of the corruption. So we must deal with the corruption on tender system so that people can feel that these processes are actually fair. Because it mustn't only be fair, it must be seen to be fair in terms of processes. People accept that if got 30% allocated to locals and they can see the process transparent, there is no political interference, there is more interference from administration, it's just transparent. People accept the outcome of tenders. But the problem is, people genuinely raise these issues, but sometimes, you will find that in a municipality, for example, you will find group of community leaders want to engage with political leaders because of arrogancy. They don't want to meet with them. Then they end up resulting to violence. That's a problem we normally see sometimes. I had engaged some guys who are genuinely in business. They want to engage the mayor, one of the municipalities, and the mayor was not willing to meet with them. Then what do you expect to happen? These guys are eager to say you want to raise an issue with the mayor, but the mayor is not prepared to meet with them. So that's why then sometimes people get vulnerable, then they get to be violent, which is not the real case. But to answer your question, yes, it may be a problem, but I don't believe that the violence itself just comes from the taxi industry. It's been there, and I'm not saying those individuals are ANC members. All I was saying is those members were used by ANC leaders. And it's a pity if Mtolo doesn't know that, but I was there on the committee when the two factions, if you remember the two factions happened at that time, there were strong factions in the ANC region where they were fighting. And that's how it started, because they came to the regional office engaging, and I engaged some of them, unfortunately. They were saying they went to the ANC region, they were engaging in general issues, but unfortunately you'll find that they were used by certain factions to fight other factions. Then it became something factional, it's a faction, and all over. It became mushrooming from Etegwini. That's why it started, Etegwini. Then it went all over the province, all over the country. Now we're in this mess. But I'm glad now the police are working decisively, they arrest the criminals.
Let's seek solutions then, Mr. Mtolo, because we're not going to take you back to allegations about the ANC because you're not willing to admit that. But let's seek solutions and talk about what, from a political standpoint, do you think needs to be done to rid the province of these construction mafia? Because if the country, the picture of the country is anything to go by, look at the Eastern Cape. In the Western Cape, it's been the practice, restaurants, nightclubs. What is the solution from a political standpoint?
No, Tony, listen. You see, some of us, I think you would know that I've been in the peace of the ANC almost close to a second decade now. From 2008, there was a break of 2 years and a half. Then under Senzo, when he was a chair and the premier, we know how he started to work very hard on this thing when he started mushrooming. Then under Sikhle, Sikhle was very vicious. Both as an MEC for economic development, but as a chair of the ANC, but also as a premier of our province. That was our leadership. Then we started to work with the police. The results we are seeing now, they don't come on its own. It's because of the work of the tough stands by the ANC leadership, but also by the government leadership of the ANC. Tough stands against the construction mafias. Then we have to, I know that at some point Sikhle established a certain task team that was dealing with this matter.
Yeah.
We're firm on our message. We're even telling our municipalities to not budge on these people. We have to be firm. Now, the results we are seeing today is because of that strong message that we communicated as the ANC leadership and as government leadership against these people.
Allow me to interrupt for a second. You invoked the name of Sikhle Zikalala, who was premier, and you're saying that he was quite vicious in dealing with these groupings. He says this morning that the police are going to lead us to the masterminds who are behind these groupings or behind these people. Do you believe that there are masterminds or people who are masterminding these actions?
It seems that when you look at the operation, that some of the guys they can't have this courage that they have without having a certain backup somewhere. And then this is our assumption. Then we believe that the police will go to those masterminds because remember, this thing started small, but now, as you look at it, it's like an organized crime.
Yeah.
And you would know that an organized crime is not done by a guy who's ordinary on the street, who's ordinary in the township. Somebody works on the background, then deploys these people as their own agents to do their work. Then, because now it's clearly organized crime, then we have to make sure that the police, and we trust the police. I think the police of KZN, especially under the leadership of Commissioner Mkhwanazi, they've done fairly well. And then I think society trusts the police of KwaZulu-Natal that they will finally put this thing to rest.
Mr. Mncwango, do you believe that indeed there are people who are masterminding this? And if indeed there are masterminds, who are these people?
I think it's hard to tell who are these people, but bottom line is they are people behind this. As Mtolo is saying, I agree with him. This is an organized crime. I remember when we did an oversight in one of the areas, I think it was Mzimkhulu, we engaged with the community. It became clear that someone came from outside of the area and started to tell the business community in that area to demand 30%, but that person had a share, not from the area. It was a person from Durban. They didn't say who's the person, but he said someone came and made them aware that they can demand 30%, but that person wanted also a share. Remember, this person is not even there in that area. He's sitting in Durban, getting money from whatever they are doing there, he's getting money. So, meaning these people are going around asking for a share by mobilizing individuals, demanding this work, violently so, but then they make money. That is why I agree with you. And Mtolo says it's organized crime that is going all over the province. But what we need to do now, we need to make sure that a solution, we need to make sure that when we appoint tenders, we also appoint social facilitators in communities who can engage with communities and also be transparent in processes, because part of the problems we see is a lack of transparency in tender processes.
Yeah.
Where you've got secrecy, then it becomes a problem, because any accusation, you say, how come this person got a tender? You say, oh, no, he's a friend of a politician, or someone is behind this company, etc. But if you're transparent, you avoid any of the speculations.
All right. On that point, let's take a break. When we return, should the law or perhaps legislation be tampered with in order to try and circumvent this particular practice? Because it does appear that this 30% that is that's got to be budgeted for by companies who come and conduct work, it is the premise upon which these groupings work from. So we'll ask that question when we return. You're watching News at Prime. If you're just joining us, we are discussing solutions to the so-called construction mafia. And if indeed there's got to be progress here, do we need to temper with regulations, the legislation? Mr. Mtolo, I want to come to you. The question around 30% value of a contract that is given, that has got to be allocated to a small company, I suppose, from that locality, which has got to be given this tender in order to empower the local business and by extension give jobs to people locally. Do you think that if that were done away with, scrapped, in other words, the very same construction mafia would still come and demand a 30%, which is no longer a law? Or do you think that this is the very thing that they're trying to exploit?
No, you don't scrap what is good, which is its intention is for good reasons, because there are criminals who are abusing a system. If you say an example, if I can make an example, if you say in a medical school, for you to be admitted, you must have 42 points. You must have level 7 on mathematics, level 7 on life sciences. If someone comes and storm and ban a library, ban a university, wants to come with 23 points, does it mean in order for you to solve that problem, you must downgrade the standard? You must keep the standard and deal with crime. Then on this issue, it's not about the regulation. It's criminals who are undermining the regulation. Because the regulation is very clear. It says if a contracting authority does a tender, it must be a requirement on a tender as a part of the special conditions of contract of a tender that if I'm a big company, it's my duty to go and look a company I will subcontract to and then disclose that company, and so that company must also be vetted.
Right.
If it's only going to do the job. Then these people, they don't follow all that process. Because remember, they are not business people. These are criminals. They can't follow that process because they won't qualify. They wait for you to get a job. Sometimes, let me tell you, they go to even subcontractors, what we are also not telling. They go to a big company that is doing a central job, and then it has subcontracted a company maybe to a value of 40 million. They go to the very same subcontractor that is local. They demand also their 30%. Now, because they are criminals, they are not business people.
Mr. Mncwango, you are a lawmaker. Is there something that needs to be done with the legislation, or is Mr. Mtolo correct that you can't change what's good for the country simply because you are under duress from criminals?
I think there's a space for amendments, not scrap it. There's a space for amendments. For example, as Mtolo is saying, a bigger company goes and look for smaller companies on their own. There's no transparency in that process, because it means as a big company, I can go around and appoint my own friends to get 30% allocation. So where is transparency? If you don't do transparency in that process, you're then opening up a space for those who are not happy to then start demanding more work on this 30%. There's a loophole, because if a company appointed follow the open, transparent process where everyone in the community feel I had an opportunity to put my document through to this company and I couldn't get in because of these reasons, you wouldn't find these issues. But also, I think the gap here is this notion of saying only big companies will come outside the area. That's another problem, because you will find it says 30% for locals, as if it's a local level. Normally, in smaller municipalities, where you find, like in Guanongoma, you will find that all big companies will come outside of Zululand, for example. Now, a big company comes from Joburg or Durban, as if there is no one capable of doing that work in Guanongoma. So the processes must firstly check in the area, is there anyone with grade 7, for example, who can do this big construction? If there's no one, then you go outside, because that's how people feel that we are locals. But we're not getting awarded big tenders. They're only awarded to someone or individual outside the municipality. So it means then, as the locals, we are only capable of doing 30%.
Yeah.
Small jobs. Why is that? So I think there's a space for amendments, but not scrap it.
Mr. Mtolo, businesses that are suffering the consequences of this invasion of infrastructure projects, because the result is that nothing moves. You can't, in a province like KZN, for example, a bridge is being built somewhere where children have got to be walking on that bridge to get to school. But because there is a stoppage, those children are forced to cross that river, possibly dicing with their lives. And that is a reality. I don't need to teach you that. This is your province. You know that. How should businesses be supported in order to overcome this?
Before I go there, I think Mr. Mncwango has submitted this 3 times, that tenders are not transparent. I'm not in government now. I left government August 2022. It's almost 2 years now. I left government. But when I was in government, I know that tenders get advertised, and then on the day of closure, companies, they wait in a box of tender. Then SCM officials, they open every tender box, they register every company. Then they give each tenderer what is called the schedule of those who have returned with prices. With this company has quoted so much, this company has quoted so much. These are the compulsory returnable documents. Tick yes, no, tick yes, no. They do that. But on top of that, municipalities and the provincial government in KwaZulu-Natal, before they then award a tender, they then advertise a tender, intention to award for 14 days, calling for other tenderers who participated, who got the schedule, to say, object. Let me make an example. I got a schedule. This was a road advertised by Department of Transport. I was the cheapest. I was 21 million. Then they award some produce 86 million. Then when they issued the intention to award, because I know the prices, and I also know that the schedule didn't return, let's say, test plan certificate, if it was a compulsory returnable document. I know it was ticked. Then I will object to the tribunal, the treasurer tribunal, to say this company could not be awarded because it didn't return it. But this company is expensive. Why is given a job here? I'm 60 million less than this company. Then the bid appeal tribunal will therefore issue a directive. Then that tender can't be awarded once I've appealed. Then it's transparent like that. Then I don't know what this transparency is all about. It's not necessarily entirely true that tenders are not transparent. But maybe something drastically has changed from 2022. I'm no longer in government now. Then to your question is that the issue here is that this is a criminal activity. Now, once the project is stopped, as you were saying, I think Zwakele also said in one of the interviews, I watched him, that each tender, when the tender is done, a contractor, when it's awarded, then local government get involved, even if it's national government, local government get involved, then they elect something that is called project steering committee, which is elected democratically by community in that particular area that the project is going to be constructed. Then on top of that, they then appoint someone who's qualified as a project liaison officer. Sometimes they say CLO, a community liaison officer. Mostly they use that word now, CLOs. Community liaison office, who's qualified and paid by the contractor, not by government. He's paid by the contractor, who then look everything that happens in the project. Is that person, when they start to come, he must therefore inform the ward councillor, inform the police. Today we could not work. By 8 o'clock while we were working, the CLO, somebody came with guns and all that. Then the police must come. Then what we need to do now, which I think Mkhwana is starting to do, we need to have a team, a task team of police, that these things will be deposited there, so that then in the provincial office, then there must be a reporting line. But I've also seen police have launched a hotline now where you report these activities.
Yeah,
it's a national hotline. Then I think within 6 months, let me tell you, even less than 6 months, this thing is going to come to an end. Police are very vicious on this, and we're supporting them full 100%.
Mr. Mncwango, politicians, it's unfortunate, I have to ask you this question using their terminology. They often say that they are leaders of society. That's what political activists are. That's what the two of you are. If there are people who are coming to hijack projects under the banner of radical economic transformation, they are using the political slogan of the day. It is upon people like yourselves to take that messaging back and say, but you are misusing it because you are engaging in criminal activity whilst purporting to want to do good for society. Again, I ask the question, how do you help businesses to overcome this? Because these bridges must be built so that children do not drown in waters.
I think you're quite correct, Xoli. Leaders must lead. And I think all of us have that responsibility. Whenever it happens, I think, as I said earlier, when people want to engage you as leaders, we must come out and engage them. Because some of them, before they get violent, because they haven't had someone to listen to them. Because sometimes people just want someone to hear their issues. And sometimes leaders run away from addressing these issues. So I think all of us collectively, I don't think it's an issue of someone in government alone. I think all of us leaders, as you are saying, we need to provide leadership. But I want to come back to the issue of transparency, as Mtolo was raising. The issue of bid education committee, the BACs, are done in committee, right? Now, if they can be done transparently, there should be an issue, because when you issue a tender, you do the scoring matrix. It's clear what need to be, what we need to qualify for to get a tender. So why is done in committee? Why is it not done publicly? So But again, another solution, actually, some of work require technical skills. Like if work like a bridge, you need civil engineers. I think part of the solution should be to say, for a company to qualify for a tender, at least one of the directors must be a civil engineer, for example. So if you talk of electrical business to be done, one of the directors must be an electrical engineer, because you've got so many qualifying graduates who are out there who aren't even open up a space, and those who are politically connected are occupying the space, who are not even involved in business. They're just sitting there by Cuba, not even getting involved in a business on day-to-day running of a business. So when you are a professional, you will make sure that you succeed. You said some bridges are collapsing after maybe 2 months being built. It's because of a quality of work done. Why? Because people who are there, they're just there to make money, not they've got the interest to make sure they are professionals, and they want to see this bridge last because they know it goes with their names and their credibility. They must make sure that whatever work they do is out of quality.
30 seconds each. We are out of time. Real transformation, economic transformation, is clearly lacking in the country, Mr. Mtolo. And the party you belong to has been in charge of the country for 30 years. What is to be done? What is to be done for communities to believe that genuine economic justice is coming? Because the criminality speaks to people who clearly don't see the light at the end of the tunnel.
No, it's true, God. I think Mncwango is raising a very important point of making sure, though I don't agree with him entirely, 100%, but is raising an important point that the issue of skills development becomes important in terms of producing skills entrepreneurs who know how to run a business and all that. That becomes important. But also, I think one thing that we also have to do as a country now, in terms of driving what is called broad-based black economic empowerment, is to make sure that we develop a clear program of mentorship. Let me tell you, Xoli, I was a mayor for almost nearly 8 years in Kokstad. If I can tell you the devastating issue of land reform that has happened in that municipality, where farms that were employing 100 people, 45 people, 60 people, once they change hands, they just collapse. No production, no employment opportunities and all that. And then because once you kill the mentorship, then the guy who's coming on the system, we can take someone who's coming from university, who's got a master's in business management. But because there's never run a business, if you can give him 100 million, the chances of failing are higher.
Yeah.
If he's not mentored by somebody who has been in the business, who know what is in the theory and in the practical sense of the word.
Mr. Mncwango, 30 seconds, we're completely out. Transformation, economic transformation. This is a cry, at least if you look at what other people are saying. The country is crying out for economic justice.
I think it's true. It should be a priority of our government. It's unfortunate that sometimes you'll find that the markets will praise the GNU, for example, while people are still starving and economy is not growing. And I agree with Mtolo that we need to look at skills development, especially for young black South Africans and Africans in the main, because they are the one who goes to universities, technical colleges, but they come back home, sit with these skills. You find someone who's done plumbing, being an electrician, but he's saying, I'm unemployed. You ask yourself, why can't you start a business? We need skills.